तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्।
हे गणनाथा गजानना,
हे गणनाथा गजानना,
हे गणनाथा गजानना,
हे गणनाथा गजानना,
हे रम्बा गजानना,
हे रम्बा गजानना,
हे रम्बा गजानना,
हे रम्बा गजानना,
हे गणनाथा गजानना,
हे गणनाथा गजानना,
गौरीनन्दन गजानना, गजानना, हे गजानना,
गजानना गजानना, हे गजानना,
गौरीनन्दन गजानना, गजानना, हे गजानना,
गजानना हे गजानना,
सिद्धिविनायक गजानना,
सिद्धिविनायक गजानना,
हे सिद्धिविनायक गजानना,
सिद्धिविनायक गजानना,
हे गणनाथा गजानना,
हे गणनाथा गजानना,
हे रम्बा गजानना,
हे रम्बा गजानना,
हे गणनाथा गजानना,
हे गणनाथा गजानना,
गौरीनन्दन गजानना, गजानना, हे गजानना,
गजानना गजानना, हे गजानना,
सिद्धिविनायक गजानना,
सिद्धिविनायक गजानना,
हे सिद्धिविनायक गजानना,
जननी
जगत्तारिणी परिपूर्णी साईश्वरी जननी
जगत्तारिणी परिपूर्णी साईश्वरी जननी
सत्यस्वरूपिणि जननी
सत्यस्वरूपिणि जननी
धर्मसंवर्धनि जननी
धर्मसंवर्धनि जननी
शान्तस्वरूपिणि जननी
शान्तस्वरूपिणि जननी
प्रेमप्रदायिनि जननी
प्रेमप्रदायिनि जननी
जननी जननी सत्यसाई शुभ जननी
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 सत्यसाई शुभ जननी जननी सत्यसाई शुभ जननी 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 सत्यसाई शुभ जननी 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 सत्यसाई शुभ जननी 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 सत्यसाई शुभ जननी
राधा कृष्ण करुणा लोला राधे गोविंदा
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 राधे गोविंदा मुरली गोविंदा
राधे गोविंदा मुरली गोविंदा
राधे गोविंदा मुरली गोविंदा
राधे गोविंदा मुरली गोविंदा
राधे राधे गोविंदा मुरली गोविंदा
राधे राधे गोविंदा मुरली गोविंदा
राधे गोविंदा मुरली गोविंदा
राधे गोविंदा मुरली गोविंदा
राधा कृष्ण करुणा लोला राधे गोविंदा
राधा कृष्ण करुणा लोला राधे गोविंदा
राधे गोविंदा मुरली गोविंदा
राधे गोविंदा मुरली गोविंदा
राधे राधे गोविंदा मुरली गोविंदा
राधे राधे गोविंदा मुरली गोविंदा
राधे गोविंदा मुरली गोविंदा
राधे गोविंदा मुरली गोविंदा
राधा कृष्ण करुणा लोला राधे गोविंदा
कोटि प्रणाम शतकोटि प्रणाम कोटि प्रणाम शतकोटि प्रणाम शतकोटि प्रणाम। हे दीननाथ साईनाथ।
गोपाला राधा लोला गोपाला राधा लोला मुरली लोला नंदलाला मुरली लोला नंदलाला मुरली लोला नंदलाला मुरली लोला नंदलाला गोपाला राधा लोला राधा लोला केशव माधव जनार्दना केशव माधव जनार्दना केशव माधव जनार्दना केशव माधव जनार्दना वनमाला वृंदावन बाला वृंदावन बाला वनमाला वृंदावन बाला वृंदावन बाला मुरली लोला नंदलाला मुरली लोला नंदलाला साई मुरली लोला नंदलाला मुरली लोला नंदलाला गोपाला राधा लोला राधा लोला मुरली लोला नंदलाला मुरली लोला नंदलाला गोपाला राधा लोला राधा लोला केशव माधव जनार्दना केशव माधव जनार्दना वनमाला वृंदावन बाला वृंदावन बाला मुरली लोला नंदलाला मुरली लोला नंदलाला साई मुरली लोला नंदलाला मुरली लोला नंदलाला गोपाला राधा लोला नंदलाला नंदलाला दया करो भगवान नंदलाला नंदलाला दया करो भगवान भवसागर से पार उतारो भवसागर से पार उतारो दया करो भगवान कृपा करो भगवान तुम्हारी शरण करो भगवान। नंदलाला नंदलाला दया करो भगवान। भवसागर से पार उतारो, दया करो भगवान। कृपा करो भगवान। तुम्हारी शरण बिना नाथ है हम, दया करो भगवान। कृपा करो भगवान। नंदलाला नंदलाला दया करो भगवान।
श्रीनिवासा वेंकटेशा, श्रीनिवासा
प्रभु रामचंद्र के दूता हनुमंता आंजनेया प्रभु रामचंद्र के दूता हनुमंता आंजनेया हनुमंता 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 आंजनेया हनुमंता 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 आंजनेया हे पवन पुत्र हनुमंता बल भीमा आंजनेया हे पवन पुत्र हनुमंता बल भीमा आंजनेया बल भीमा बल भीमा बल भीमा आंजनेया बल भीमा बल भीमा बल भीमा आंजनेया प्रभु रामचंद्र के दूता हनुमंता आंजनेया हनुमंता 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 आंजनेया हे पवन पुत्र हनुमंता बल भीमा आंजनेया हे पवन पुत्र हनुमंता बल भीमा आंजनेया बल भीमा बल भीमा बल भीमा आंजनेया बल भीमा बल भीमा बल भीमा आंजनेया प्रभु रामचंद्र के दूता हनुमंता आंजनेया
वहे गुरु वहे गुरु वहे गुरु की जय। वहे गुरु वहे गुरु वहे गुरु की जय। सत्यनाम 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 बोलो सत्यनाम 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 नित्य जपिए तेरे नाम की शिव नाम की बोलो बोलो शिव 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 नाम की बोलो नित्य नित्य सत्य सत्य नाम की बोलो बोलो हर 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 जी बोलो हरि 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 जी बोलो सत्यनाम 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 जी दत्त 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 दत्तात्रेय जी बोलो दत्त 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 बोलो दत्त 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 दत्तात्रेय जी बोलो
When it comes to spirituality, we want to track our progress out of curiosity and also sometimes when we are not enjoying the journey. But it is not always that we are not enjoying the journey. It is possibly also because we want to know how well we are progressing and whether we are on the right track.
Right.
If I am doing a mantra, I want to make sure that I am doing it right. I don't want to be doing it wrong and going in the opposite direction of what I intend to. So this is also possibly a reason why I want to track my progress, just to ensure that I'm doing it right and I'm on the right path. This is for our own judgment and progress. It is not for judging others.
Right, exactly.
It is not for seeing how others are progressing. And we are lucky that we have had Swami, who has personally guided and given so many beautiful messages and teachings that give us an idea on how we can possibly measure this progress. It reminds me of the experience of one of our college professors, Professor H.J. Bhagya, whom we very lovingly call as Bhagya Sir. You know, Bhagya Sir is an inspiration for so many students, and his life experience is very interesting. He was brilliant in academics. He had some of the best jobs. He's a chemical engineer by profession. He's traveled around the world, earned well, had a brilliant career ahead of him. But he didn't have satisfaction, and he just felt that what he seeks in life, he can get it only through a spiritual pursuit. And that's why he gave up all that. And cutting the long story short, he became a teacher in the newly inaugurated School of Business Management, Accounting and Finance.
Okay.
That means he arrived at the lotus feet of Bhagwan. And Swami also put him on a spiritual path. Swami told him that you should inquire, who am I? It started off with Bhagya Sir wondering, I know who is Swami, he is God. But then he understood who am I meant find out who you are. And in pursuit of that sadhana, he had some amazing experiences.
Okay.
The highlight of which was, once Swami granted him a gift. During one darshan, just patted him on the head. After which, Bhagya Sir, became one with God, almost, you can say that, because he didn't see the difference between him and anybody else. He felt the whole mandir within him, Swami within him, the whole universe. He became like one with the universe. He had that ultimate experience and he was blissful. A few days later, I think 2 days later, Swami brought him out of that experience. In fact, Bhagya Sir says that I returned to abnormalcy because he says it was such a new normal and such a beautiful normal, you would not want to leave that at all. Bringing him out of that, Swami said, something to the effect that free sample over, now work for it. So he had to work for that, and that is when, Bhagya sir felt that state is so beautiful, it's worth giving up everything else. So he decided, I don't want to do anything else other than spirituality. So he decided to even resign from his post as a teacher. He gave his letter, 3 months advance notice you have to give. Right. He did all that. Everyone told him, don't do this because Swami has given you the job. He said, no, Swami has given me the advice also. I know it. So he submitted his resignation letter. Swami was in Vrindavan then. A few days later, Swami came to Parthi. And interestingly, Swami called all the teachers in for an interview. And in the interview, Swami started, again, coincidentally and interestingly, speaking about sadhana. And Swami said, true sadhana is when sadhana, that is the process of the action that we are doing, the sadhaka, that is the aspirant, and the sadhyam, the goal of sadhana, all three become one. Then only it is sadhana. And then he asked Bhagya sir, what sadhana are you doing? He said, Swami, as you advised, I am trying to find out who I am. Swami was happy. And seeing that happiness in Swami's face, Bhagya sir went on and said, that is why, Swami, I have decided that I have had enough of the world. I don't want to waste my time in worldly activities. I want to focus only on spiritual activities. So Swami, I have even resigned. I want to resign and dedicate myself 24/7 to spiritual activities. Mm-hmm. And he thought that Swami would be tremendously pleased with this. Instead, as he says and recalls, Swami's eyes opened wide and they became red with fury and anger. And he says, Swami said, Bhagya, if you separate things as worldly and spiritual, even in 1,000 lifetimes, I will not give you what you are seeking. Bhagya sir was like, his words were not, you will not get. His words were, I will not get.
My God.
Meaning, sir said that this is the granting agency, this is the granting authority. So he immediately fell at Swami's feet and said, Swami, please forgive me. I will not do this. I will listen to what you say and do as you say. And that is when Swami guided him to be a teacher, continue to be a teacher. To this day, he continues to teach. It became very clear to him that you cannot say that teaching is worldly, eating food is worldly, I won't do this. Don't. And Swami said, follow what I'm telling you and I will give you what you need, what you require and what you want. So the secret lies in following Swami, and the secret lies in not separating things as worldly and spiritual.
That's one of the very beautiful experiences that Bhagya sir narrates. And it's very similar to what Professor Venkatraman, former director, used to say. This happened when he was the Vice Chancellor. And those were the days, I think, when he was the Vice Chancellor, it must have been 96, if I'm not wrong. So that was a time when Swami was coming every Sunday to the university auditorium. And Swami would interact with the students and Swami would give a discourse every now and then. So one day when Swami was giving a discourse, very interesting context, Swami was speaking about pricing and costing of products. Right? We know that Swami used to speak to the MBA boys, as you were saying, even Bhagya sir was an MBA lecturer. So Swami was talking about costing and pricing, and Swami materialized a golden Schiefer's fountain pen.
Wow.
Okay. And then Swami started taking it apart, and Swami said how they price it based on the components that are used in the pen. And it was, of course, very fascinating for all the students, and everybody was enjoying that entire explanation. You could never expect a class like that, right, in any other university. So at the end of it, Swami, as he was walking out of the auditorium, Swami looked at Professor Venkatraman, who was the Vice Chancellor then, and Swami said, "No, Petko, you keep this." And Swami gave it to him, and he was delighted, extremely happy. So a couple of days later, it so happened that he had gone inside the interview room. So he said that, he used a ballpoint pen, which probably is the cheapest of the pens that you could get. He would use that for most of his office work and all that. And one afternoon, since Swami called him suddenly, he just went in and Swami looked at his pocket and Swami said, "Hey, where is the pen I gave you?" Seeing that he was having a ballpoint pen. So he said, Swami, because he said that he would use this pen for all his office work and all that. He would use that fountain pen that Swami had given only for taking notes when Swami is giving discourses.
Only for
special things like that. So he said, Swami, I've used Swami's pen only for spiritual activity. And then Swami gave him a cold stare, he says. And with a definitive and profound pause, Swami looked at him and Swami said, "In life, everything is spiritual. And he said that was the first lesson. He was the vice chancellor of the university, but as a student to Swami, he said, this is my first lesson. So I think that is one of the most important first steps if you talk about spirituality. Even before talking about milestones, you're taking a completely wrong direction if you are separating worldly and spiritual. It is supposed to be together. In fact, in one of Swami's discourses, Swami gives this analogy, and I was thinking, imagine my favorite example, so to say, if I were to go and take a cup of coffee. Imagine if I take a sip of coffee and then take a pinch of sugar, then take a sip of coffee and then take a pinch of sugar. That would be the most silly thing to do. So Swami would say, you have a glass of water. If you want to sweeten the water in this glass, what do? You put sugar and you mix it. Then every drop of that water becomes sweet. Swami said, same thing is with your life too. Spirituality should be added to worldly life and it should be stirred. And Swami said the process of stirring is only what you refer to as sadhana. And then every aspect of your worldly life will become sweet. And that is what you need to do. And if you keep separating, and Swami says in that same discourse, he says, morning when you're doing meditation, you're sitting like that and you look like a yogi. Then by the time you come out of your puja room, you become a bhogi. And by the time you go to bed, you're a rogi.
Exactly.
And Swami said that is why Krishna advised Arjuna, he says, Satatam yoginaha. You should be a yogi full time, no part-time yogi here. Every aspect of your life should become spiritual. And that reminds me of another beautiful episode that Professor Kasturi would narrate. We know that he came to Swami in the late 40s. When Swami promised him that you would come and stay in the ashram, you would become my biographer. Swami said, you will write my Jivana Charita. So he was looking forward to that moment when he would dedicate himself to Swami's service. And his work took him to different places. And finally, I think he was the principal at a college at Davangere, right? So he was kind of counting his days when he would retire from service and he could come. And he would say that every opportunity he would get, he would come and sneak a darshan of Swami. If he comes to know that Swami is in Bangalore or Swami is in Mysore, he would come and have Swami's darshan. So 3 months to go for his retirement, and he got to know that Swami is in Madras and he had some work roundabouts. So he said, let me go and snatch a darshan. So he went to Swami and Swami was very pleased to see him. And then he went and submitted to Swami. He said, Swami, 3 more months of university service. After that, I am coming to you for your service. And Swami gave him a disgusted look, so to say. And Swami said, I thought you're a wise man. You're supposed to be a professor. Is this all your intelligence? And he said he felt very low. Imagine this is in 1950s. 20-year-old Swami telling a professor who is about to retire, so accomplished. Swami saying, I thought you're a wise man. Then Swami said, how can you say that is not my service? Swami said, is the whole world not mine? Is that college not mine? If you're serving there, does that service not come to me? And he says, how could I do this mistake? The whole universe is his. That university, does that not belong to Swami? And that is the attitude Swami says that you should have. You should spiritualize your life. You should be able to do every activity that you do as a part of that sadhana, as part of Swami's work. And that is, I think, a conscious step that you can take. The rest of the point that we might talk about may be a little more spontaneously coming up in our nature, but this is a very conscious step that we all can take.
Absolutely. I think we can put that down as our first guidelines, if we want to measure our spiritual progress. Stop separating things as worldly and spiritual. You mentioned the 2 professors' examples. It reminds me during one of the Prema Bandham meets. Prema Bandham is when all the alumni gather together at Bhagwan's lotus feet. So all the alumni, it was such a beautiful moment, reliving nostalgia. And at that time, they put forth to Swami saying that, Swami, we would like to do something unique. We all want to do something special for Swami. See, that's the thing. Man always seeks exclusivity. Swami is always inclusive. That's the difference. So they said, Swami, we want to do something. We want to do seva, something special as alumni. But Swami, the problem is, we are all, in the peak of our careers,
right.
or even family life. Take care of children, take care of family, career. Swami, sometimes even weekends, we don't get time to do bhajan or seva or anything. What to do, Swami? How do we solve this conundrum? Swami said, see, you put in your best efforts to find time. But if you are not able to find, no problem. Whatever work you're doing at office, do it for me. Whatever work you do for your family, whatever you do it for me. It will reach me. This is what is meant by all inclusive. Swami doesn't say your sadhana is only the bhajan you do, the japam you do, and how you think of me. If you think of other gods also, it's for me. If you do your work also, if you cut vegetables, Swami would tell housewives cutting vegetables, cut saying that I'm cutting my ego.
Right.
And it reaches. So spiritualizing everything because no separation. In fact, before the 85th birthday, all of us Swami's alumni who are working in the ashram, we are a group whom we call ourselves as Sai Sannidhi. And the Sai Sannidhi members, we all prayed at Bhagwan's lotus feet again, saying that Swami, for 85th birthday, something special we want to do. Again, that exclusivity. Something special as Sai Sannidhi we want to do for you. And Swami said, I have given you work, different works at different parts in the ashram. Just continue to do that well. To your heart satisfaction and conscience satisfaction. That's enough. Always it has been that, Swami is saying, don't pull yourself out of what you're doing for Swami. Pull Swami into whatever you're doing. One day I remember, while speaking to some devotee, Mr. Padmanabhan was there, and he happened to introduce himself as a driver. And the devotee was like, oh, okay, he's a driver. And then I said, sir, he is not a driver. He's Swami's driver, And yes, Padmanabhan sir is Swami's driver. We call him Padmanabhan sir. Because he's Swami's driver. You should have seen the change in expression. Oh, Sai Ram, Sai Ram. That person became so overwhelmed. And that is when it struck me. See, possibly if somebody says that he or she is a driver, we may not give so much of importance, or we may not feel it's something great. But the minute somebody is Swami's driver, we are overwhelmed and we feel as if we have seen Swami himself. Why don't we make everything like that? If I'm an accountant, why can't I be Swami's accountant? If I'm an editor, why can't I be Swami's editor? If I'm a sweeper, if I'm at the mall, if I'm a janitor, why can't I be Swami's janitor? If I'm a CEO, why can't I be Swami's chief executive officer? This is how I think we spiritualize. We do everything, like you gave the example of the coffee and sugar. You take coffee separately and sugar separately. Not only is it foolish, it's also not pleasurable. That is what I said in the beginning. When a journey is not pleasurable, you also tend to look out for when is it going to end, because I'm not enjoying the journey. But if you mix the sugar in the coffee, not only is it not foolish, it is wise, it's also pleasurable and sweet. So I think we come to the first aspect of judging our own spiritual progress, wherein we don't separate things as worldly and spiritual. We do everything for the Lord. At this point, I think nobody can say it better than Bhagwan himself. So we will be playing a little discourse clip. It is taken from the birthday discourse of 1987. After listening to Bhagwan's golden words, we will continue this satsang.
ఈనాడు భౌతికమైన లౌకికమైనటువంటి సాధనలు ఎందే మన కాలమును వ్యర్థము గావించటము ఇది సరైనటువంటి సాధన కానేరదు.
We are wasting our time in only this kind of physical exercise and mental exercise.
సర్వత్రా ఉన్నది ఒక్క దైవతత్వమే.
What exists all over is only divinity.
లౌకికము ఆధ్యాత్మికమైనటువంటి రెండు లేవు.
There is nothing like worldliness and spirituality.
ఆధ్యాత్మిక యొక్క అంగమే ఈ లౌకికము.
Worldliness is only one limb of spirituality.
అగ్నిజ్వాల నుండి ఏర్పడినటువంటి కణములే ఈ అగ్ని కణములు.
All these things are like sparks from the fire of
ఈ జ్వాలనే దైవము.
This flame may be compared to God.
వచ్చినటువంటి యొక్క కణములే ఈ జీవులు.
From this flame have emerged all these jeevis and as sparks of
అగ్నికి ఏ గుణములు ఉంటున్నావో ఆ జ్వాలలకు కూడా అదే గుణం ఉంటున్నది కణములకు.
Just as the sparks will have the same characteristics of the flame, we also have the same characteristics of God.
కనుకనే బ్రహ్మైవ భవతి అనేటువంటి సత్యాన్ని గుర్తించడానికి ఇందులోనే మనము సరైనటువంటి అర్థాన్ని తెలుసుకోవచ్చు.
We can understand the correct meaning of Brahmavid Brahmaiva Bhavati on the basis of this.
So that was the discourse clip that we were talking about, dear listeners, very clearly. And this is not the only time that Swami has spoken about this. Multiple times, as we've been saying, Swami has made this very clear. And in a sense, I think you can say that this is the ultimate stage that you will reach, that you will not be able to say that this is God and this is not God, or this is spiritual and this is not spiritual. I think that gives us the hint of about how do we otherwise measure our progress. As we said, this is a conscious step that we can take.
विनायक सविता पावततु ब्रह्ममस्तु यत्वशक्तितु येषु पिता प्रभुतु रुद्रविष्णुतु रामकृष्णतु रहीमतावतु वासुदेवगो विश्वरूपतु चिदानन्द हरितु अद्वितीयतु अकाल निर्भय आत्मलिङ्ग शिवतु आत्मलिङ्ग शिवतु आत्मलिङ्ग शिवतु स्वामी सत्य साई हरे भक्त जना संरक्षक भक्त जना संरक्षक पति महेश्वर ओम जय जगदीश हरे शशिवदना श्रीकर सर्व प्राणपते स्वामी सर्व प्राणपते कल्पलतीका आश्रित कल्पलतीका आवधानव ओम जय जगदीश हरे माता पिता गुरुदेव मरियं त्रयुनीवे स्वामी मरियं त्रयुनीवे नाद ब्रह्म जगन्नाथ नाद ब्रह्म जगन्नाथ नागेन्द्र शयन ओम जय जगदीश हरे ओंकार रूप ओजस्वी साई महादेव सत्य साई महादेव मंगल हारति अंगुक मंगल हारति अंगुक मंगल गिरिधारी ओम जय जगदीश हरे नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण 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 ओम नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम जय सद्गुरुदेवा नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण 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 ओम नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम जय सद्गुरुदेवा नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण 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 ओम नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम जय सद्गुरुदेवा शांति 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 सर्वे जना सुखिनो भवन्तु
जय बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई महाराज की
समस्त लोका सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्त लोका